All right, let's dive into the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, I know an ancient Indian text might seem a little, well, intense. But stick with us because, honestly, you're going to be surprised how relevant and how practical the wisdom in this thing really is.
You're absolutely right. It's amazing how timeless some of these teachings are.
So, picture this. Ancient India, a battlefield. Two armies are about to clash, and right in the middle of it all is this warrior prince. His name's Arjuna, and let me tell you, he is having a major crisis.
It's a scene that, well, it just grabs you, this battlefield. It becomes this incredible metaphor for the struggles we all face inside, those moments when we're totally torn between what we want to do and what we feel we should do.
Talk about inner conflict, right? I mean, this guy's about to fight a war, and not just any war. He's facing his own family.
Yeah, talk about family drama, right? And in that moment, he starts questioning everything. War, duty, even the meaning of life itself. And that's where it all begins. This is the setting for the Bhagavad Gita. And, it's a crisis a lot of us can relate to, even if our battles aren't fought with swords and chariots.
Totally. And as Arjuna's freaking out, in steps Krishna, his charioteer.
Seems pretty normal so far, right?
Yeah, but here's the twist. Krishna isn't just a charioteer, he's an incarnation of God. And he's there to guide Arjuna, to offer him some serious wisdom.
So yeah, not your average Uber driver.
Right, and their conversation, that's what becomes the Bhagavad Gita. It's often translated as the Song of God.
It's like this incredible philosophical toolbox packed with insights on ethics, on duty, purpose, even inner peace. And the coolest part, this isn't just for Hindus or for, super spiritual people.
It's for anyone, literally anyone who's looking for some guidance in life, no matter what they believe.
Okay, so we've got this ancient text, a battlefield, a warrior prince, and God is his charioteer. Where do we even begin to unpack all this?
Well, think of the Gita as a journey. It's divided into 18 chapters, and these chapters unfold like a map towards self-realization.
Okay, a map. I like that. But self-realization, that sounds pretty, out there.
It might sound a bit lofty, but really, it's about understanding your true self, your purpose, your place in the world. And the Gita lays out a few different paths you can take to get there. They're often grouped into three main approaches: jnana yoga, karma yoga, and bhakti yoga.
All right, break those down for me. What's the difference between these yogas?
Sure. Jnana yoga is the path of knowledge. It's all about self-discovery through, knowledge and understanding.
So like studying and reflecting on the nature of reality and the self.
Exactly. Then there's karma yoga, which is the path of selfless action. It's about focusing on doing your best in each moment without getting all hung up on the results.
So it's more about the journey than the destination.
In a way, yes. And finally, there's bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. This one's all about cultivating love and devotion to God.
Got it. So 3 different paths, but all leading to the same goal: self-realization.
You could say that. And what's really cool is that you might resonate more with one path than the others, or you might find bits and pieces that resonate from all 3. It's a very personal journey.
All right, so we've got these different paths, but what are some of the key teachings, the universal truths that the Gita offers, regardless of which path we choose? What's the stuff that everyone can take away from this?
One of the most important concepts is Dharma.
Dharma. I've heard that word before, but refresh my memory. What is that exactly?
It's often translated as duty, but it's much more than just, a list of things you're supposed to do. It's about understanding your unique role in the world.
So like figuring out what you're meant to do and how to do it in a way that's true to yourself.
You got it. It's like discovering your own personal instruction manual for living a fulfilling life.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is so relevant even today. So Dharma is one big takeaway. What else?
Well, think about a time when you were facing a huge challenge, something with a ton of unknowns, like a major decision, or maybe a creative project. That's where karma yoga comes in.
You're talking about that idea of letting go of the outcome, right? Focusing on the effort, not the results.
Precisely. It's like aiming for that bullseye, but being okay if your arrow lands a little off-center.
Okay, that makes sense. Focus on what you can control and let go of the rest. I can see how that would be helpful. What about jnana yoga? What does that path offer?
Jnana yoga dives deep into the nature of the self, what the Gita calls the Atman. It's the realization that you are something more than just your physical body or your thoughts.
Whoa, okay. we're getting a little philosophical here.
Maybe a little, but it's a powerful idea. It's about tapping into that deeper sense of self, that part of you that goes beyond the everyday ups and downs.
I like that. So it's like finding that unshakable core within yourself.
Exactly. And when you realize that, it can bring a profound sense of freedom and even this feeling of interconnectedness with everything around you.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty deep. So we've got jnana yoga, karma yoga. What about bhakti yoga? What's that all about?
Bhakti yoga is all about cultivating love and devotion to God. It's a path that really emphasizes that personal connection to the divine. And there's so many ways to express that devotion: prayer, chanting, rituals, even just feeling a sense of awe and wonder in nature.
So it's finding ways to connect with something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. And the Gita recognizes that we all connect in different ways. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding what resonates with you.
That makes sense. So we've talked about dharma, karma, and even a little bit about the self. But speaking of the divine, what does the Gita actually say about God? Like, who is this Krishna guy?
Well, Krishna, in his role as this charioteer, this guide for Arjuna, he actually reveals himself as the supreme being, a personal God who is actively involved in the world.
Hold on, so he's not just some wise dude giving advice. He's actually God in disguise.
You got it. And he even explains this concept of the avatar, which is God taking human form to restore balance and righteousness in the world.
Wow. So this is getting pretty complex. But here's a question that popped into my head. If the Gita came from Hinduism, how is it relevant to someone who's not Hindu?
That's a great question. And it's actually one of the things that makes the Gita so fascinating. Yes, it's deeply rooted in Hindu tradition, but its message really goes beyond any one religion.
So you're saying someone could be, I don't know, an atheist or a Buddhist, or even just someone who's never really thought about spirituality, and they could still find something valuable in this text.
Absolutely. It all comes back to those universal human questions that we all grapple with at some point. What is my purpose? How do I live a good life? How do I find peace in the midst of all the chaos? The Gita offers tools and insights to help us navigate those questions, regardless of our background or beliefs.
So it's like a universal language of the soul, speaking to something deeper within all of us.
I love that. Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. But even if these themes are universal, I have to admit, it's still an ancient text. Does it really hold up in our modern, tech-obsessed world? I mean, can ancient wisdom really be relevant in the age of smartphones and social media? That's what's so cool about the Bhagavad Gita. It's been interpreted and reinterpreted throughout history, and it keeps evolving. Honestly, there is even some surprising connections between its teachings and modern science.
Wait, really? Like what? I'm intrigued now.
Well, for example, think about how the Gita emphasizes this idea of interconnectedness, that we're all part of a larger cosmic web. That actually resonates with some of the crazy discoveries they've made in quantum physics, like the idea that observers can actually influence outcomes.
Okay, mind blown. So you're saying those quantum physicists might have been reading the Gita and thinking, wait a minute, they figured this out centuries ago.
Oh, right. It's amazing how ancient wisdom and modern science can sometimes converge. And it's not just physics. The Gita also talks about controlling the mind, managing desires, and finding inner peace. That all aligns with modern psychology and this whole mindfulness movement that's happening.
So it's like those ancient sages were onto something, even without, like, brain scans and research labs. But how did the Gita become so popular? I mean, not just within Hinduism, but globally. How did it spread so far and wide?
That's a great question. And the answer is, well, it's been a journey. Its influence has spread through different philosophical schools, through yoga traditions, through influential figures like Gandhi and Aurobindo. Even artists and writers have drawn inspiration from its stories and its teachings. And then, of course, now we have the internet.
Ah, yes, the internet. Always changing the game.
Right. And in today's digital age, the Gita is more accessible than ever. You can find translations, interpretations, discussions all online. This ancient wisdom is literally available to anyone with an internet connection.
It's like the Gita is having this global revival. But let's get specific here. How can someone actually apply these teachings in their day-to-day life? I mean, most of us aren't exactly facing a literal battlefield, you know?
True, but we all face our own battles, right? At work, in our relationships, even within ourselves. And that's what's so cool about the Gita. It offers these really practical tools for dealing with those challenges, no matter what form they take.
So it's like having this ancient life coach in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Always ready with wisdom for every situation.
Exactly. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore some specific examples of how those teachings can be applied to, well, pretty much everything from managing that overflowing inbox to making those tough life decisions.
This is already so much more than I expected. I'm definitely hooked. Can't wait to keep exploring. Okay, you've convinced me. The Bhagavad Gita. Surprisingly relevant, even after all these years. But let's get practical for a second. How can this ancient wisdom actually help me with, like, the daily grind, overflowing inboxes, to-do lists that never end, all that stuff?
That's where the Gita gets really interesting. It's not just philosophy, it's a guide to action. Let's take that overflowing inbox, for instance. Instead of freaking out about how many emails you have, try remembering karma yoga.
Karma yoga, right. Detach from the outcome. But does that mean I just ignore my emails?
No, not at all. It's about shifting your focus. Don't get obsessed with reaching inbox 0. Just concentrate on each email as you reply. Do your best in that moment.
So it's more about the process, the approach, rather than stressing about the end result.
You got it. And that shift, focusing on the process, that's where you find that sense of calm, even in the middle of a crazy day. It's like turning a stressful task into, well, almost a mindfulness practice.
I never thought of it that way, turning my to-do list into a spiritual practice. But what about the bigger stuff? The decisions that really keep you up at night, the life-changing choices. Can the Gita help with that?
Think back to Arjuna on the battlefield. I mean, talk about a tough decision. Duty versus family. Huge consequences. The Gita doesn't give easy answers, but it does encourage us to find balance.
So it's not just about logic or just about emotions. It's about using both, right? Head and heart.
Exactly. Remember Dharma. The Gita reminds us to consider our values, our unique path, and the potential consequences of our choices. And sometimes the toughest decisions, well, they require courage. They push us beyond our comfort zones.
It's not about avoiding the hard stuff. It's about facing it head on with wisdom and with a sense of purpose. It's like the Gita is saying, hey, life's going to throw you curveballs. But you've got this inner strength. You can handle it.
I love that. It's a message of resilience. And it applies to so much more than just our individual challenges. It's about how we relate to others, too.
That makes sense. So we've talked about work, decisions. What about relationships? Because let's be honest, relationships can feel like a battlefield sometimes.
You're not wrong. And the Gita's teachings on compassion, on understanding, even on non-attachment, these can be super helpful in relationships.
Non-attachment in relationships, isn't that a bit, cold?
Not at all. It's not about not caring. It's about loving without clinging. Without needing the other person to meet all your expectations.
So it's about accepting them for who they are, not who you want them to be.
Right, and that acceptance, that creates space for a deeper connection. It allows you to see the best in them, even when they're driving you crazy.
It's like the Gita is saying, hey, everyone's fighting their own battles. Offer compassion, not judgment.
I like that. It's a shift in perspective. It's not me versus you. It's more like we're in this together. But let's zoom out for a minute. The Gita talks about duty, purpose, even the nature of reality. What about that big question? What's the meaning of life? The meaning of it all? Yes, the ultimate question. And the Gita doesn't offer one simple answer. It encourages us to go on this journey of self-discovery. It offers different paths. But ultimately, it's about connecting with something larger than ourselves.
So instead of accepting someone else's definition of purpose, we have to find our own unique meaning.
You got it. And when you align your actions with that purpose, with your Dharma, that's where you find true fulfillment, a kind of joy that goes beyond the ups and downs of daily life.
So the Gita is saying, you're not here just to exist. You're here to experience life fully, to learn, to grow, to connect, to love.
Beautifully said. But it's a lot to take in, right? All these big ideas. So how do we actually go from these concepts to, actually doing something? To practical actions. That's the real challenge. It's one thing to understand it intellectually, but to actually live it, to embody it, that's where it gets real. It takes commitment, discipline, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone.
So the Gita is more than just a philosophy, it's a call to action.
Exactly. It's about living more consciously, more compassionately, and more purposefully. And that journey, it can be tough, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
All right, you've definitely got me thinking. I'm ready to dive in and explore some actual ways to put these teachings into practice. Where do we begin? What are some concrete things I can do to integrate the wisdom of the Gita into my life? All right, so you've got me convinced. The Gita is this amazing guide to life. But how do we actually use it? Where do we start? What are some real, tangible steps we can take to bring this wisdom into our everyday lives?
Well, one of the most powerful things you can do, and it's surprisingly simple, is practice mindfulness.
Mindfulness, right, okay, being present in the moment.
Yeah.
But how does that connect to the Gita?
The Gita talks a lot about the importance of staying focused on what you're doing right now, not getting lost in worries about the past or anxieties about the future.
So bringing that mindful awareness to everything we do, from the big stuff to the little everyday things.
Exactly. And there are tons of ways to do that. Meditation is a classic, of course. But honestly, even just taking a few deep breaths before you start a project, or really paying attention to the taste of your food when you eat these little things, can make a huge difference.
It's about slowing down, tuning in, becoming more aware of ourselves and everything around us.
You got it. And as you practice mindfulness, you naturally start to become more intentional. You're more aware of the impact of your choices. It's like you create this space between, something happening and your reaction to it. And that space gives you more freedom.
Freedom to choose how we respond. I like that. Okay, so mindfulness is a good starting point. What else? What other tools does the Gita offer?
Another big one is self-reflection. Taking the time to really examine your thoughts, your motivations, your actions.
So like checking in with ourselves, taking inventory of our inner world.
Yeah, exactly. You can journal, meditate, or just set aside some quiet time each day to think about your experiences. The key is to be honest with yourself. Recognize your weaknesses, but don't beat yourself up about them.
It's about self-awareness and taking responsibility for our own growth, just like Arjuna had to do on the battlefield.
That's a great connection. And the more you understand yourself, the easier it becomes to make choices that are aligned with your values, with your Dharma.
Okay, mindfulness, self-reflection. Got it. But what about the Gita itself? Should we be, reading it every day? Like, is that a thing?
Engaging with the text directly can be incredibly powerful. There are so many great translations out there. Find one that resonates with you and, make it part of your routine.
So it's like having a conversation with these ancient sages, getting daily doses of wisdom.
I love that. And don't be afraid to underline passages, write down questions, journal about your insights. The more you interact with the text, the more it comes alive.
And for those who are maybe less into reading and more into doing, there's always the path of karma yoga, right?
Absolutely. Putting the Gita's teachings into action, that's where the real magic happens. It's about contributing to something bigger than yourself, serving others, and doing it without getting hung up on the results.
So finding ways to make a positive impact, whether it's these big grand gestures or just everyday acts of kindness.
Exactly. Volunteering, mentoring, being a good friend, even just bringing more mindfulness and compassion to your interactions with people, those are all expressions of karma yoga.
It's about aligning your actions with your values and, trying to leave the world a little bit better than you found it.
Beautifully said. And the beauty part, when you act in this way, it's not just about helping others, it creates this sense of purpose and fulfillment within you.
So it's win-win. You make a difference and you feel good doing it. But let's be honest, living by these principles, it's not always easy, right? Life gets in the way, we get distracted, old habits creep back in. Any advice for staying on track?
Well, just like Arjuna had Krishna as his guide, we don't have to do this alone. Connecting with other people who are, on the same path can be so helpful.
So finding your tribe, your
Yeah.
spiritual support system.
Exactly. There are groups, communities, online forums where you can connect with other people who are exploring these teachings, sharing insights, talking about challenges, celebrating successes. It's a great way to stay motivated and inspired.
It's about creating this sense of community and support on this journey. But even with all that support, let's be real, we're not going to be perfect at this.
Of course not. And
Right.
that's okay. Remember, it's about progress, not perfection. There will be times when you mess up, when you get caught up in the drama of life and forget about all this stuff. We all do it.
So be kind to ourselves. Don't beat ourselves up when we stumble.
Exactly. Just gently guide yourself back. Keep practicing. Keep striving to live a life that's aligned with your values. It's a lifelong journey. And every step you take in that direction, well, that's a victory.
It's about embracing the whole journey. The ups and downs, the challenges and the triumphs, all of it.
I love that. And as you continue on this path, you might find that the Gita's wisdom, it becomes less about rules and more about, just a way of life.
It becomes like a lens through which you see the world.
Beautifully put. And when that happens, you might just discover that you're not only living a better life, you're contributing to a better world too.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient text, it's actually a guide for navigating modern life. It's about wisdom, compassion, and finding your purpose.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And the best part, it's a journey that's open to anyone. All you have to do is take that first step.
Well said. And to our listeners out there, if you're feeling inspired to dive into the Bhagavad Gita, go for it. There's so many resources out there. Books, articles, podcasts, online courses. Remember, even the longest journey starts with a single step. Take that step today. You never know where it might lead you.
Who knows? It might just change your life.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the Bhagavad Gita. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving.